As Tom Loftus tries to figure out how to handle the shocking truth about his son's origins, the island is relentlessly demanding he make a choice. Today we're breaking down the Season 1 finale of Widow's Bay so you'll know what to expect next. Just a friendly reminder that the show has officially been renewed for a second season, so we definitely need to talk through all the major takeaways. After PJ locked Kenneth in the secret basement room, the storm finally died down, making almost everyone think things were finally back to normal. But at the very end of the episode, Tom hears exactly 8 bells toll from the church, which is definitely not a good sign. So, what could those 8 bells actually mean? My first thought is that it represents the number of sacrifices the island is demanding. However, I also came across a really interesting detail in some open sources. This imagery has deep roots in nautical tradition. Sailors divide the day into watches, and each one is marked by bell strikes. 8 bells signify the end of a 4-hour watch and the changing of the guard. In that context, the final scene takes on a whole new meaning. We still don't know if Ruth was successfully saved. It seems really unlikely that she would have let Tom take her family heirloom just to throw it into the sea. It honestly felt like a farewell scene for Ruth. If that's the case, you could assume those bells symbolize the official passing of her role as the guardian of Richard Warren's pact to Tom's son. My initial suspicions about Evan started when his storyline began running parallel to Richard Warren's. It immediately felt like their stories were being intentionally woven together. Because of that, I was actually a bit surprised when Rosemary, without a shred of doubt, pointed to Ruth as the last Warren descendant. I immediately felt like something was off. That's when I really started paying attention to Ruth's behavior. Her sincere concern for Evan, who is definitely not what you'd call a perfect kid, felt like it went way deeper than just basic hospitality. It was such an easy detail to miss since we weren't seeing everything directly, just hearing it through Tom's perspective. Even though those were just gut feelings at first, in the final minutes before the big reveal, I started noticing things that confirmed my theory. We were shown Evan's own room in Ruth's house, which was set up with such special care. It honestly made me laugh that she genuinely believed the ladder by the window was just for the boy to use in case of danger. Tom, having plenty of experience with Evan sneaking out to see friends in the middle of the night, obviously realized what was actually going on right away. On top of that, Ruth even had a photo of the boy on her fridge. That's clearly something much more personal. Finally, they confirmed what we've been guessing for a long time. Ruth is actually the mother of Lauren. Ruth had an affair with a married man that resulted in her pregnancy. She chose to keep it a secret and ended up giving Lauren to her former lover's family. Think back to the content of one of the letters Evan had. Lauren wrote that there are 2 mothers in life, the real one and the secret one. At the time, that seemed like just a random, meaningless string of words. But now, we're beginning to understand that it looks like Lauren knew about Ruth's secret, even though it seems like Ruth chose to stay on the sidelines. While you're watching this video, I'm already hard at work breaking down other top-tier projects like Sugar. I highly recommend you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on all the cool content coming up. Tom was used to seeing Ruth as just a colleague, the one who was always trying to leave work early and seemed to forget things a lot. But she was staying on at the mayor's office even though she dreamed of retiring, just so she could keep an eye on Tom and Evan, whom she considered her family. Ruth had been carrying that burden for so many years, terrified to open up, that it just became part of her daily routine. When Tom went to her house, he found her on the treadmill. We all remember how the island somehow improves the physical condition of the locals. From what I can tell, that's exactly what allows Ruth to keep up with everything we saw on her calendar. It especially touched me that she helps her neighbor get out of bed every single morning. That's why he was desperately trying to find any clue to prove Rosemary was wrong, but instead, he found something else entirely. Among Ruth's things, we see that same brooch that Sarah Warren once gave to Frances. Tom hoped until the very end that it was just a mistake, but Ruth herself confirmed it was her family heirloom, finally cementing her connection to the Warrens. What's interesting is that, judging by how openly she talks to Tom about her past, it seems like she doesn't quite grasp the gravity of the situation. But I wouldn't jump to conclusions. When Ruth brought up the idea of accepting a brutal reality, it felt a little suspicious given the context. Of course, she was mainly referring to Tom's obsession with turning Widow's Bay into a popular tourist destination despite the obvious struggles. On one hand, you could chalk that up to Ruth's experience working at City Hall for so long, but the way she casually recounted the incident where something grabbed her father really adds fuel to the fire. She talked about it like it was an everyday errand rather than a tragedy. I noticed a similar reaction from Jerry, the worker at the island's historical center. Her behavior also raises a lot of questions. Ultimately, I think Ruth might have known the whole truth about the pact Richard Warren made, and more interestingly, about the order that ensures it's carried out. She didn't argue with Tom when he came to the conclusion that Evan couldn't leave the island. At the same time, he realized he wasn't any different. Tom always knew something was wrong with Widow's Bay, but he decided to turn a blind eye and bring people here anyway, making them hostages to the situation, all just to make Evan's life more interesting. In the end, that's exactly why this conflict of interest ended with Ruth and Tom hugging. Finally, let's get back to the situation with PJ. I was suspicious immediately of how well he knew his way around those tunnels. Furthermore, the creature, which clearly had been waiting for its dinner, didn't touch PJ. It came out exactly when Kenneth was left all by himself in the secret room after the boys' cowardly move. PJ pretended like it all happened out of nowhere, but it was obvious he knew exactly what he was running from before any of it started. I think Evan noticed that too. I'm curious if he shared what he saw with his dad. Honestly, I'm more than sure that PJ is part of that same order Dale learned about from those old tapes. You have no idea how hard I laughed when he caused a panic among everyone in the pitch black. And I also loved it when Patricia shined a flashlight on her face while trying to calm everyone down. Those moments really help diffuse the tension that keeps building as the plot develops. That's really why we love Widow's Bay. I could talk for a long time about how much I love this show, but let's get back to the story. So, Dave learned that for many years there has been a group of people in Widow's Bay making sure the pact continues to be fulfilled. As I understand it, one of them is the author of the instructions that Reverend Bryce read after Tom told him about the bells. There was a clear indication that he had to take action, though it didn't specify what kind. But now it's all coming together like a giant puzzle. Reverend Bryce was supposed to be part of this order, but he clearly refused. I suspect that the descendants of this order are the ones behind his passing away. Honestly, I wasn't surprised that a guardian order exists, since it always struck me as odd that according to the locals, the island had been relatively peaceful for years, aside from a few isolated incidents. It turns out that was only possible because someone in the shadows was keeping the ancient pact alive. I suspect that besides PJ, Jerry might also be a member. Like I said, she has such a strange reaction to everything happening. She bragged to a New York Times reporter that Widow's Bay used to fight witches, who obviously were just regular women. Also, Jerry didn't react at all to the boogeyman mask going missing. And she didn't even go to the shelter as if she knew exactly what was going to happen there, which is what we're going to talk about next. The island pitted people against each other. From the food spoiling to the flickering lights, everything just ramped up everyone's aggression. At that point, I started to understand why the woman who used to work in Rosemary's Spot warned her about that shelter. It seems like the closer people are to the monster in the basement, the more influence it has on them. Especially Bashir, who was already on edge after finding out his wife was going to give birth soon. According to him, there were still a few weeks to go, but it feels like the local force has very different plans and isn't about to wait. In the end, Bashir did something irreversible, which I think surprised us all. It seems the island knows exactly which strings to pull to get the residents to do things that, in the long run, won't change anything at all. What's interesting is that even before the conflict peaked in the shelter, we were getting clear signals about it, like those weird instructions on the walls in the doctor's corner. I immediately remembered the situation in the church that the New York Times reporter mentioned in the first episode. It looks like the island really was planning to provoke something like this to pressure the members of the order into making a decision. Considering everything I've said today, Evan is in the worst position possible. He's caught between two forces, those who want to maintain order at any cost, and those who want to destroy that order without always understanding the consequences. It's a classic situation where neutrality is impossible, even if you're desperate to stay neutral. Will Tom eventually find a way to save Evan from his destiny? We'll find out in Season 2. In the meantime, leave your own theories in the comments. I'd really appreciate a like and a follow. Thanks so much for all your support, and I'll see you in the next video.